The November 25th, 2019 meeting of the Recreation Education Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer. Mr. Ansello is excused. Mr. Felder. Mr. Flagler Mitchell is excused. Chairman Turp.
Here.
President Carbone.
Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Is there anyone present who has not signed up to speak who would like to address the committee at this time? Now I would like to introduce Roberto Franklin, Chief Financial Officer of the Monroe County of Monroe County, who is here to present the 2020 proposed Monroe County budget as it pertains to the Recreation Education Committee. We will have a question and answer period following the presentation.
Chairman, our 2020 budget presentation as it pertains to the Recreation Education Committee. Four major areas within this committee's purview. Our Monroe County Parks Department appropriations are increasing a little bit, primarily due to debt service on the new zoo renovation project. Our appropriations for Monroe Community College, they're actually a little lower this year, and that's actually the opposite of parks. It's reduced debt service. And our library support is running a little higher. That's due to an additional contribution from Monroe County to the Rochester Public Library for central services of about $102,000, and also in part due to switching up their capital project funding. The county going forward is committed to funding capital projects with cash capital rather than borrowing. Within our Department of Parks, appropriations are increasing to about $3.6 million, of which $3 million is attributable to higher debt service for the revitalization, the zoo renovation project. For that increase in zoo debt service, we are specifically using available fund balance within the debt service fund to pay off a bond anticipation note that was issued this past June to avoid converting it to bonds. The use of that fund balance is also most of the reason you see the increase in revenues. It's appropriated fund balance. Additional revenues within Department of Parks is also being generated from completion of a new platinum level parks lodge constructed within Powder Mills Parks. Platinum level lodges rent out for about $1,500 a day. Looking at Monroe Community College, appropriations on the county's books are made up really of three areas. The county's sponsor contribution, which is flat at $19.13 million going into 2020. Our out-of-county sponsor support, that's when Monroe County kids go to, say, GCC or FLCC. That out-of-county support is increasing by $400,000 up to $6 million. And then community college debt service is actually coming down by $4.5 million for a total of $7.1 million. Last year's debt service was higher because we had budgeted to use $4.2 million of unrestricted fund balance within our debt service fund to fully redeem the bond anticipation note that was issued the prior year, again, rather than convert that to bonds. That saves about $221,000 the first year in interest. Within our library system support, a couple changes are going on in the library. Again, I'll reiterate, we increased Monroe County support of central services by $102,000 as requested and negotiated with the library staff. We are also providing cash capital funding in 2020 in the amount of $100,000 rather than borrow. Going forward, 2021 through the 2025 CIP, we've committed to increasing that cash capital contribution to $155,000 annually. That's actually a good move. In my opinion, it adds a little bit of budgetary predictability to Monroe County and to the library. It will reduce the county's debt service costs because we avoid that interest expense. And I believe it gives the library added financial flexibility in scheduling out their capital improvements. Just looking very quickly at other educational support, we also fund Cornell Cooperative Extension, and we fund Monroe County Soil and Water Conservation District. These are the same budgeted appropriations as in prior years with no major changes worth mentioning in this presentation. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the presentation. Happy to field questions at the end of the table.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. I will now open the floor to any committee members who have questions regarding the recreation education portion of the budget. Legislator Felder.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. One question. On page 104, appropriated fund balance was referred to as appropriated debt service fund balance in the 2019 proposed budget. Why the difference? Why the change in the terminology? Curiosity.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, is it why the change in terminology?
Yes.
Just trying, Mr. Chairman, trying to arrange consistency throughout the budget book. We work, not always easy, but we work a little hard to try and make the terminology consistent throughout the departments. As you go through this particular budget book, all uses of appropriated fund balance should be specifically titled appropriated fund balance. I think you may see one exception in Pure Waters. Our Division of Environmental Services, Department of Environmental Services has quite a number of divisions, and we try to be a little more specific there. But, Mr. Chairman, this particular use of appropriations is strictly budgeted funds within debt service to pay off prior issued bond anticipation notes.
Thank you. And one more question. On page 253, just notice that the golf revenue has been constant, almost like exact. Is that approximate numbers, or are those exact numbers of the last few years?
Mr. Chairman, can I, golf fees or concessions? I'm
Golf.
sorry.
Golf, both.
Well, yes, Mr. Chairman, for 2019 amended budget and the 2020 proposed, our golf fees and concession revenues are consistent from year to year. That was done primarily just in recognition that there's not a lot of variation from year to year in golf revenues, other than years that are really hot and people don't golf, or years that we get a lot of rain and people don't golf. But it is a relatively good number for the Parks Department to average out and strive for.
On page 248, and this is the zoo, and 710, the 2018 actual attendance was nearly 375,000 people, and actual fees 2018 were about 1.6 million. For 2020, we're projecting more people, but the fees, the revenue is less. Is that?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. These are estimated attendance numbers. We'll have final 2019 numbers in a couple months. Attendance was pretty good, I think, this year. Weather really cooperated this summer. Plus, it's a lot of exciting things going on at our parks. Just not complete yet in terms of their renovation project. But I also thought it was prudent to hold the admission fees constant from 2019. Because if you look back in time, going over the past, say, 10, 12, 15 years, there are quite a number of years where the estimated zoo admission revenues failed to meet budget, and I think it was a prudent move for the county to hold them flat going into 2020 rather than risk another year of budgetary shortfall.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I have a couple questions. If I take a look at the last year's budget as far as major objectives, there are 3 major objectives that I didn't see in accomplishment or in the 2020 objectives. So I was just wondering if we can get a status on those 3. Are construction of roads and parking areas in Arundecoit Bay Park West. Number 2 is construction of the Warriors of Freedom Memorial. And number 3 is construction of Churchville Park Master Plan improvements. If I could just get an update on that.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, could you tell me the page you're referring to?
It was last year's budget.
What was last year's budget?
Yep, it was objectives from 2019 year budget, page 243, if that helps, from last year's budget, just looking to see if those were accomplished in the past 12 months.
And
What's
what
that?
were those projects again?
It was the,
Bay Park West roadway?
yep, the construction of the Warriors of Freedom Memorial, and the construction of Churchville Park Master Plan improvements.
Gladly, through you, Mr. Chairman, or to you, Mr. Chairman, the Bay Park West roadway improvement is actually being completed this week. They were actually laying asphalt today. So you can check that one off. Warriors of Freedom, as you know, that is a state grant-funded project, funded through Senators Robach and Funky. Those contracts are with the Dormitory Authority, and they have been reviewing them for most of the year. We contact them monthly, and they're still reviewing them. So we have no status on that, and we can't let contracts out until we have funding in place. And then Churchville Park Master Plan improvements. The bulk of that is going to be an irrigation system for the West Course, which replaces an old iron irrigation system. That is currently being bid out at this point. So we anticipate that that will be done late winter, early spring, and then we'll be also making various lodge, other infrastructure, tennis court, and parking lot and roadway improvements in the spring related to that.
Okay, thank you. Legislator Felder.
Due to the administration, this is about the Soil and Water Conservation District. On page 107, the number of agricultural acres planned for soil erosion detection practices is dropping by more than half from 2018 to 2020. Is there a reason why?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sure there is a reason why that we cannot describe tonight, but we will respond to that.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, before, by the Ways and Means, or by the budget night? We have the answer?
Mr. Chairman, we will endeavor to respond prior to our Ways and Means Committee.
Just
Thank you.
clarification, can you, page 107, what specific section? What was the question on?
The amount of land that's preserved.
The agricultural acres
Yes.
planned for soil erosion protection practices?
Yes.
I don't know if Mr. Franklin can clarify this, but I'm looking at estimated 2019 was at 3630, and estimated 2020 is actually increasing. It was a decrease from 2018 to 2019, but in 2019 to 20, it's increasing.
Yeah, but we're asking why it went down so much, and I don't know why this question wasn't asked last year, in 2018.
Okay, all right, so,
That's the question.
okay, thank you.
We will find an answer to that, Mr. Chairman.
And my final question, I promise. On page 110, the Monroe County Library System mobile applications has shown a dramatic decrease. Is there a reason why?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just 1 minute, please.
Through the chairman, the Monroe County Library System shifted from a third-party paid application called Boopsy to an in-house application that relies on Google Analytics. Did not have the same level of capability in terms of our ability to track individual queries. Even though the engagement on the overall mobile applications is still very high, we believe that the Boopsy product was overstating the original usage of their app.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So you're saying that we were getting bad information, and they were overestimating the number of people who were coming to the website?
So it was only through the application, and we believe it was because of how queries were generated. So if someone was going to look for one particular event, they were counting that search for the event and then to the particular library location as a double. When we are doing our own in-house application through our integrated library system, we are counting that as a single.
All right, thank you.
Can you clarify the name of the third-party application?
It's totally called Boopsy.
Oopsie?
Yes.
So you could say that they made an oopsie in how many visits they estimated?
Boo, but yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? So before we close out this question and answer on the budget, I would just like to recognize the Director of Parks Department is retiring after 30 years of service. And while I still have him here at the table, I would like to first thank him for his years of service, 30 years, and especially for his past years being the Parks Director and then the Zoo Director. And then if I could ask you two questions, if you would indulge me. The questions would be, if you could answer this or not, what has been your favorite part of the past 30 years, and any specific recommendations you have for this committee for the next year or so?
To you, Mr. Chairman, other than having the pleasure of meeting you over the last few years, I would say that my favorite accomplishment is actually getting the zoo accredited last year. It was a big challenge. In 2013, when we were last accredited, we were told that if we did not take on a major capital improvement program and demolish the main zoo building, we would not be accredited again in 2018. And through the support of this legislature and successive county executives, we were able to secure the funding and support to begin a transformational change at the zoo with our capital improvements, with Cold Asia and Animals of the Savannah, and take the main zoo building down, and plan for the future for a replacement there of a Tropics building. That impressed the heck out of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and they said it was the best turnaround they had seen between accreditations in many years. So that was something that I'm very proud of, and I think you should all be proud of, because you were all at the table for that. That was supported by this legislature and by the people in this county. My advice to you for the future, our parks are important. And my predecessor, Frank Alcoffer, sits in this chamber now, and he told me that on his way out as I was coming in. And parks are very important to the people of this community. And it's one of the few services that this county provides that everyone in the community can take advantage of. Regardless of your status, regardless of your wealth, anybody can enjoy a park. And Frederick Law Olmsted said that they were a democratizing facet in any community, and I agree with him. So keep funding these parks, keep setting land aside when it comes up to incorporate into our parks or create new parks. I am often asked how Monroe County is so blessed to have 21 parks and basically a regional park system within our county. And I always reply that it was through the foresight of the people that came before us in the legislature and in county government who put aside these lands and were wise about the planning for the future and why we have these. So I would advise you to follow in their footsteps and continue to fund and continue to move forward. Thank you.
Legislator Felder.
I would just like to say, on behalf of at least myself, and I can say on behalf of Ranking Member Flagler, want to thank Larry Staub for his assistance. Anytime we've ever called him for anything, he's been very, very generous with his time and made whatever effort he could make to make sure we got what we needed, even when we call him after someone else. And I appreciate that, having that relationship with him over the last 4 years. And so I wish you well in your retirement.
Thank you.
And if you would like to join Mr. Staub on a trip to Africa, I think you will be taking one next year? Is that
In
what I
May,
read on
yes.
Facebook? Okay. So, the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the August 26, 2019 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified by changes by the end of the day. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? There are not. So, before we close up, if you've been to a committee meeting before, that's on the 25th, I like to do a little countdown to Christmas. So today is November 25th, and we have 1 month until Christmas. I'd just like to say, whether or not you celebrate the day or not, the next month is great, as far as just the atmosphere, the hustle and bustle. So take some time, spend some time with your family. I got 3 kids, time goes way too fast. So the day will come and go, but the memories will last forever. So enjoy the next month. And then the November 25th meeting of the Recreation Education Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Recreation Education Committee will be announced at a later date.